Hey guys, so the most important thing I needed to make now that I bought some tools and I've got some space, is a workbench. And I went crazy looking for a good workbench for myself because this is literally one of my first projects, one of my first big projects. So the one I chose was from this YouTube video I saw. I'll try to link it down and I'll show you the plans of it. It's basically you make a workbench from one big plywood sheet, 8x4. And I love that. And it's a one-day project. And unfortunately, the plywood I chose was really crap, but still it turned out really well, the workbench itself. I didn't really care to make it really well finished and so accurate, but overall it's really sturdy. I think it's gonna last me a really long time, although I planned on making this a temporary workbench. And it doesn't sway, it doesn't move, and I'm in love with it. And since I've made it, I've been actually doing much more woodworking, so I'm really happy. So let's go check out how I made it. Hope you like it. Okay, so this is the workbench we're gonna make, which is also gonna be an outfeed table. And this is the plywood sheet that I used. It's 8x4 feet. These are the plans that I saw. It's from another YouTube video. I don't know who Jays is, but he did a great job. And I changed the length of the legs from 32.5 to 34.5 to meet my table saw, the height of it. So I taped that up so I keep watching it and viewing it so I don't make a mistake. And I have to cut this plywood sheet with my circular saw to make it into a manageable size so I can use my table saw for more accurate cuts. So I cut it up as I need to. And then I go to the table saw and I start cutting all the pieces that I need. This cut is basically for the side supports, the long ones. The short ones are already cut off camera, and these are going to be 4. And then I measure it for the legs, 3 inches. They're 3 inches wide and, as I mentioned, 34.5 inches long. And these are going to be 8 pieces. One piece I do off camera. Then these are the spacers. These are just scrap wood that I used, and I needed 4 of them to make the height of the bottom rack. You'll see how I use it later. So everything is cut up. Those are my tops. These are the small side supports. Those are the spacers. These are the long side supports, and those are the legs. And together, this is what they all look like. This is what you should have. The top surface is slightly bigger than the smaller one, as the plans show. So then I glue up my legs. I just have to make sure they're 90 degrees. I glue up all 4 of them. And then I glue up the side supports. There are 2 of them, one for the top, one for the bottom. And then the next day I come, they're all glued up, looking good. And then I take out the legs and I just make sure that everything fits well, which they do, and I'm very happy. So all good, it's ready for the glue up. I first make pilot holes on one side of each leg so that once I glue it up, I can screw it down. And then once I've screwed it down, I'll make pilot holes and screws on the other side as well of the legs. Then once the pilot holes are done, I glue up the legs. I put as much glue as I can, measuring the surface that's gonna touch. Then I screw it down so I don't need clamps. So these are the pilot holes that I've made once I've screwed down the other side, because it won't move now. And then I screw this up as well. And I do this with all the legs. So there, I've done it. It's all made. Now I put the spacers down, and this is the length I've chosen for my bottom rack. I'm just gonna put a good amount of glue there so it sticks on. So this is where I make a really big mistake. As you notice, I'm putting the side support down first. I should have put the rack down first, the surface, and then put the side supports down, because this is upside down right now, and I didn't realize that. So what I've done is I put the side supports, and now the surface is gonna be below it. So this was supposed to support that. I realized my mistake later, and the way I correct it is by using a lot of screws so that it still has a lot of support, and I can use and put some weight onto it. Because once it's glued down, I didn't want to break it up. And to be honest, it turned out alright anyways. But make sure you don't make the same mistake. You have to first put the surface down onto the spacers, and then you put the side support and glue that on. So I'm putting the surface down, and this is pretty much right after this I realize my mistake. And this is where I realize it. But I've decided about the screws, and I get to work on that. I use a bunch of screws because I know it has to take a lot of weight. All my circular saw, jigsaws, etc. So the clamps will be on top of this. But as I mentioned, it worked out fine. I even screw some from the side as well, just to add some more support. So then I clean up the glue as much as I can while it's fresh, just to make it easier for me later on. And there, the major part of my workbench and outfeed table is done. I'm just going to turn it over and get to work on the top. So first of all, I take the top surface and just check if it aligns right and everything is fine. There was one edge that it was slightly off, but it doesn't really matter because this is just a workbench. I use as much glue as I can, put it on all the corners and then all the sides as well. And later on I will screw it down too. So the glue's done. I just put the top on and I press it down. With the weight it'll attach itself anyways, but I will screw it as well. So first I take the glue off. Then I sand it down as much as I can to avoid splinters, and then I take my impact driver and I screw it down. And voila! The workbench is done, and this is it as an outfeed table, just temporarily showing you. So I just kept it a few millimeters below my table saw, and it looks perfect. This is really gonna make my life easier. I've got a DIY table saw fence, as you can see. So when I put that down, there will be a slight gap. It's not a big problem for me, because if a plank is long, it's gonna reach the table anyways. And this is my finished workbench, and it turned out really nice. I used a cheap plywood piece on it, but still, it's absolutely fine. I think this will last me a long time. Although this was the first project supposed to be temporary, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I use it now, it's very sturdy. And this is with a bunch of stuff that I'm putting into it. I kind of customized it. I made a rough hole for my jigsaw so it can stand straight with the blade inside. I don't have to keep putting the blade in and out. It's a rough hole, I didn't really sand it down or anything, but it's just perfect. It just stays straight. And I did the same with my circular saw, so it's straight. I cut that with the jigsaw. It's not straight, the slot. I could fix that, but I didn't even bother. But it just worked out great, and I love having this. I love having everything so accessible. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you make one too, and you make a good one. Till our next episode, take care and bye.